Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Robbins, and I'm substituting for Tuya Robbins for a few more days, I guess. Tuya's out of town. So we are offering the Ask program, and the idea is ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. So this is a 5-day program every week. It's about invocation. The great science of invocation is something we are learning with the new esotericism, how to scientifically call for the descent of the higher energies. And we are, in fact, according to the instructions of Master DK, we are using our meditative abilities to ask for the descent of the energies of the soul to enter our own individual lives, but even more importantly, to enter the life of humanity. So in this particular Saturday series, we're calling upon the souls of the nations. Every nation has a soul ray, a soul nature, and a personality ray and nature, as well as various astrological signs, which condition the expression of that country, that nation. And when the soul of the nation is developed and received and evoked, then the nation will fit into the community of nations in a constructive and productive way and will offer its gifts to the world. So that's what we're working on at this time, and our focus today is on the Philippines. This is a sovereign island country in Southeast Asia, and it's in the western Pacific Ocean. And it has many, many islands. It's an archipelago. Some count the islands as to be even rather exact, 7,641. Others counted more like 7,100. Anyway, it's over 7,000 islands, not all of them significant, but a huge number really. This country is located in the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire. It's quite close to the equator. It makes the Philippines prone to earthquakes and typhoons. We've seen that recent super typhoon. We'll show a picture of it in just a minute. But it also endows this country with abundant, largely untapped natural resources and some of the world's greatest biodiversity. But then one of the problems is the possible extinction of much of that diversity due to the modern ways which have been adopted. Around 20 earthquakes are registered daily, but they're too weak to be felt. The capital is Manila. The currency is the peso. There's a new president now. He's an Aries. I researched it a bit. He's pretty tough. He's kind of an enforcer, tough on the drug trade. So obviously, first rate working there. There's a population of some 100 million people, and a number of languages, but the official language is Filipino and also English. Let's see what we have here. Right, there's a picture in green giving you a sense of its location in the world. And there's a pretty good picture of the archipelago. It's divided into a few main areas. Many natural wonders, colorful history. The people are said to be very kind. It's interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Over 100 different ethnic groups and a very great mixture of foreign influences. Many, many cultures have come here. And yet there is quite a history. There is Archaeologically or paleontologically, there is discovery of the so-called Kala'o man. It goes back some 67,000 years. It's the oldest remnant, human remnant, found in the archipelago to date. But of course, we know something about the history of humanity, and it's got to go much, much farther back than that. There are a number of different groups that have come in. The Negritos were among the archipelago's earliest inhabitants, but the date for their coming has not been actually determined. I don't see how modern methods can determine these things. I think we're going to have to rely upon the ethnology of the ageless wisdom and the secret doctrine to really find out what was going on. There's a widely accepted theory regarding the origins of the ancient Filipinos. They call it the sort of out of Taiwan model, and it hypothesizes that Austronesians from Taiwan, who were descended from Neolithic cultures in China on the Yangtze River, began migrating to the Philippines at 4000 BC. You see, it's just so current. We have some kind of compressed vision of history, but all of that will be straightened out. Our archaeology, our paleontology, all of that will be straightened out as the secret doctrine is more accepted. Let's see here. We have, there's that picture of that typhoon Haiyan. The super typhoons lately have been coming in. The Philippines are much affected by global warming and climate changes at this time. This is one of the major problems for them. The country, well, what can we say, founded, I mean, from a Western point of view, the Magellan expedition arrived in 1521, and the old style calendar, March 16th, 1521, they claimed it for Spain, and they named it after, King Philip. There was a horoscope there. The sun was in Aries at the time. The ascendant was Cancer, and the moon was also in Cancer. That's very interesting. And Mars was in the first house. There's been a tremendous number of wars here in the Philippines. Later, it's gone through many, many changes, but independence was achieved from the United States, interestingly enough, on July 4th, American Independence Day, and the sign Cancer is again involved. The sun is in Cancer, and the ascendant is Virgo, but the interesting thing is, again, the moon is rising. So in the earliest chart, the moon was rising in Cancer, same as the ascendant, and in the latest chart, the moon is rising in Virgo, same as the ascendant, and Mars again is also in the first house. Well, there's always this problem of ongoing wars whenever colonialism is involved. The more recent history, well, in the 1300s, we have the arrival of Islam in the Philippine archipelago, and of course this is still an issue as there are battles still going on between the groups that are given to Islam and are resisting the kind of culture that the Philippines have. Colonialization began after Magellan. He was killed, by the way, in a battle with some of the very fierce native people. But nevertheless, the link to Spain was established, and in 1565 the colonization began with the Spanish explorer Miguel López de Legazpi. He arrived from Mexico, and there was always this link between Mexico and the Philippines, and he formed the first Hispanic settlements in Cebu. So Spain was really the predominating colonial influence from 1565 to 1821. It was the Philippines were kind of a territory of the viceroyalty administered from Madrid directly. The Roman Catholic missionaries had overall a benevolent influence. They founded schools, a university, hospitals, churches, and also the Spanish decreed public education, public schooling in 1863, and this resulted, all of these beneficent influences, there were others of course, the increase of the Philippine population. So basically we're dealing with a kind of, well, independence from Spain occurred in 1898. It was governed by the USA from that time. There was self-government in 1934 and independence. This is the chart we use mostly in 1946, July 4th, independence from the United States. Here are some pictures, petroglyphs near Manila. There's going to be markings and signs of ancient cultures, of the early Philippine sort of art and pottery. Here we have pictures that portray a Visayan couple, and then the tattooing was common. This is in the picture on the right. And we have also in the next picture the warrior class and a royal couple as well. These are early examples of what the colonialists found. You know, there was a certain arrogance always in the colonial mentality, but when you look at Spain, it has a Sagittarius soul on the sixth ray, and so they make the great explorers and adventurers, and then of course they bring a pretty strict administration to wherever they whatever they colonize, and that's coming under their sign Capricorn. There have been, you know, a number of very good rulers, and there also have more recently been the Marcoses who contributed to the stagnation of the country, so it is said. But that grip has been released. There's King Philip of Spain, for which the Philippines were named, and here a monument, you know, of one of the many battles that's involved. And here's a picture of the President Marcos and his wife Imelda. They ruled for a long time. I guess ruled is the right word. And the Philippines, which were such a promising group, such a promising culture, stagnated under them. But now we have well, there have been a number of benevolent rulers, really, and now we have a strong man in power here, Rodrigo Duterte, and let's see what the result is of that. The education is actually quite high. Literacy rate is 95% or so, maybe the functional literacy rate around 86%, but there are educational problems, and we're going to talk about that. Nevertheless, the literacy rate is high, and the religion is largely Catholic. 82% it is said Catholic, 5% Muslim, 2% Buddhist, and so forth. Let's take a look at some of the images which are interesting. Here, you know, it's very interesting from the esoteric point of view. A number of these nations are said to be the recipients of egoic lotuses which come from Venus and from Jupiter. You know, and each one of those planets has a very strong second ray component. So, you know, perhaps this accounts for the friendly attitude of a number of the people who are living in this area. It has a lot of second ray, I think. The rays are not given. Anyway, a certain friendliness is found in the people. One of the most friendly countries, we are told, and I think this has something to do with the type of egoic lotuses which settle in these parts. Here are pictures of the people. Religion is very important in these countries, maybe dwindling to a certain extent, but the Catholicism is very high, and it was brought by Spain. here's something interesting about the people. They don't so much point out directions if you ask them. They indicate which way you should go with their lips. Perhaps this is a way somehow of concealing what they do not want others to see, but it's a peculiar kind of way of indicating the way one should go. This is also a peculiar cultural factor. Apparently, there is such a thing as Philippine Standard Time. Nobody knows why it exists, but maybe it's the siesta culture of Spain or something, but apparently it's not very punctual. Although the values of the Philippines really are quite high, and I'll say something about that. You can see here the family ties are very close, and hospitality. That looks like a bamboo tree. Well, it's tremendous. Anyway, hospitality and cooperation are high when compared with the rest of the world. Yes, here's poverty. Yes, it is existing. Basketball is a great sport for the people in the Philippines. It's the most popular of all, and there are basketball courts everywhere. Why should that be? I wonder, does the chart indicate that at all? Here are some of the traditional clothings of the Tagalog people. That's a very highly represented group. They have a large proportion of the population. Yeah. And here, one of the famous dances called the tinikling. And I actually went to the YouTube and I listened to the music that was connected with this particular dance. There's a lot of skill. You can't get caught by the bamboo poles as you dance between them. It's very festive and well known, extremely colorful here. So, you know, there's much promise in this country with the education rate being high, though there are many problems there, and I'll try to explain that. There's such a diaspora of Philippine people. They are trained in their country, yes, but they don't have sufficient jobs and they have to go abroad. So millions of Filipinos are found in other countries seeking work. This is one of the conditions following their education. Okay, as a matter of fact, maybe I should say something about that education problem. Let's see, if I go over here, I should be able to find it. Yes. So the idea behind the educational problems here is that there's not enough lack of well-trained teachers. The big money is going to defense, and it's eaten up by corruption. There are the problems of insufficient technology, although they are exporting technology quite a bit. Generally, there is an unequal opportunity for the people who graduate. They just are not having the opportunities in society to exercise the skills that they have learned. There's therefore there's a brain drain, they call it, of promising graduates who go abroad, and that is an issue. Okay. You know, if I were my wife, which I'm not, I would be a little more skillful in doing this. She's quite good at presenting the soul of the nation's broadcast, but I'm improvising, so please bear with me. There's a lot to handle here. To do the research on these, complex countries, and to do it in a short time, and then to present something that will make sense, well, I think she's very good at that, and I think I'm the worst. We have help from Annalie here, but I'll do the best I can, so bear with me, please. So here, poverty is a big problem. Deforestation is a big problem. But the people, you can see, you know, whenever you look at the children, you just see the promise and you just feel like you really have to do something. The beauty is very strong, you know, the love of beauty and the beauty contest. Very interesting how the Filipinos participate in these many beauty contests, and they seem to be winning. This tells us, I think, something, you know, if I can speak esoterically for a moment, about Venus and the influence of Venus on the egoic lotuses of those who incarnate there. The beauty is strong. Lovely, lovely. And here are the traditional dances, extremely colorful. Okay, you know, apparently maybe there's not so much straightforwardness when responding. They don't want to embarrass or offend others, so you may not get exactly a direct answer. This is so colorful and so beautiful. Amazing. But you know, there is also a tradition of the warrior in certain areas of the Philippines, extremely fierce, equal to the kamikaze of Japan. I'm trying to remember exactly what they are called. Well, anyway, it was mostly associated with the Moro tribe. And when they were introduced to Islam, they became fierce, suicidal warriors. And they had their funerals before going into battle, and their purpose was to kill as many of the enemy as they could by sacrificing themselves. It was very fierce to deal with. And I think we will see that in some of the people in certain of the areas. So the influence of Mars is also there. After all, Mars is rising. So the question of Mars and Venus, quite a contrast in this area of the world. We have a picture here of very kind and friendly people, extremely welcoming and curious, also respectful. I don't know why this is so, but this particular traveler thinks they seem often happy and smiling, and they love to sing and dance wherever there's the occasion to celebrate. Okay. Here are the Igorot people of the Cordillera region. We still have much of the indigenous costuming and so forth. Well, then jumping a bit, here is the University of Santo Tomas. It's established in 1611, you know, the oldest extant university charter in Asia. Here's the way the income is made. Agriculture employs about 30% of the workforce. This was by 2014. There is technology, you know, and especially in the communications field, in the electronics field, and quite a reputation there. Medical centers are fairly strong. Communication towers we see here. Okay, so, you know, it had a tremendous economy. It was growing by a very great rate, 6 or 7% a year. Then under the influence of Fernando Marcos and his wife Imelda, there was a considerable stagnation. Now it does seem to be returning to a better growth rate. Here are some of the religions. Here is a mosque. It's the oldest mosque in western Mindanao. That's a particular area where Muslim religion is found, Islam. It was built around 1885. It's called the Taluk Sangay Mosque. All right. And here is an interior, the Golden Masjid Prayer Hall. Here is a church, one of the first, it's where the first Philippine Republic was founded. And here, regarding, I suppose, Christianity, it's the main thing there, especially Catholicism. With respect to architecture, here's the Malacañang Palace for the President of the Philippines, the official residence. Here's a fort to Santiago. It's built by, one of the early explorer there, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi in 1590. And here's the, what do they call it, the Aguinaldo Shrine. There was an independent republic in 1898. It was short-lived. Here are some cities. Manila is a huge city, and quite modern in some respects, although because of the terrain, the roads are difficult to build. Here is perhaps the largest city. It's Quezon City in the Philippines. And others, Davao City and Caloocan and Iloilo City. There's, styles of architecture, Beaux-Arts and Art Deco and so forth. Spanish colonial architecture in Vigan. And this is unique to this country. These kinds of houses are made from limestone and coral. And this is in Batanes, perhaps, a town called that. Limestone and coral structure. This is an old fortress which was made even before the Spanish arrived. They used the natural terrain to fortify and protect themselves. Again at Batanes. Here's, from technological point of view, the Buklao Dam. And this is, modern transportation. Tourists find the Philippines a very appealing place, a passenger ferry here. Here's a tourist attraction called the Tabon Cave. And the beaches are said to be beautiful, white sand beaches. Paradise. Anyway, the clearest type of water at Boracay, one of the top 10 beaches in the world. And look at the clarity of the water here, amazing. And the temperature of the water is warm, about 30 degrees centigrade. You can see it's a place where people would love to go. There was a great eruption of a volcano in 1991, and a lake was, a crater lake was established as a result of that. Very beautiful, interesting. And there are 37 volcanoes. It's a volcanic area. Caves, lakes, waterfalls, and for nature lovers, a great place. Also an interesting formation of limestone coral deposits. This looks like terraced farming, it looks like. And then here are those chocolate hills and limestone deposits, and kind of a unique natural attraction. They were developed millions of years ago, but they've eroded, and a special type of terrain here has been produced. It's called cockpit, karst topography. Here are the corals, plenteous, and homes are made of these. Oh, and now we get into the natural life. One of the smallest primates. What an interesting looking little fellow. Smallest, one of the smallest. It's called the tarsier. The food is interesting and colorful. I won't get into that too much. Here, more of the problems. Some of the indigenous people are having their land taken away. They're being forced off their ancestral lands, and their livelihoods are being undermined by mining operations, land conversion, and there's a huge resistance to this, of course, and it's a deadly resistance. Poverty is here. Poverty, very, very difficult situation. There are so many, among the problems of the nation, well, they list heavy traffic, the trash removal, flooding due to typhoons. Every time there's strong rain, there's bad flooding, high crime rates, drugs, which are being cracked down upon now by the new president, poverty, poor education in places, political corruption. Well, some of these things are endemic to many places. And in the developing countries, pollution is always an issue. And while the health care may be good for some, it's not good for others. But in general, if we would talk about the general values of the Filipino people, we would mention these things. Social harmony, the desire to be accepted by a group. You don't diverge from this type of conformity, otherwise a sense of shame will result. So social approval, acceptance by a group, belonging to a group, these are major concerns. They are optimistic about the future, pessimistic about the present situations, and there's a lot of demonstrated concern and care for other people. Friendship and friendliness very, very strong. Hospitality very strong. The religious nature is deeply ingrained. They are respectful to self and others in general. And this is important, they're respecting the female members of society. Now again, that's what I call the Venus influence, thinking about the origin of these particular souls. There's a strong respect and fear for God, and a moral quality here among many, where acts of cheating and thievery are really looked at with abhorrence. Okay, well, maybe that gives an idea. There's so much biodiversity in this area, so many species of animals and plants, but they are threatened too by more modern ways of life. The extinction rate is quite strong, and that has to be guarded against. Very strong deposits of mineral and gold deposits and copper deposits. These augur well for the future, but they are not properly developed due to poor management. Deforestation, a big problem. Anyway, we're trying to evoke the soul of the nation, which would see to the proper development of the people and the right use of natural resources, right education, right care, right medicine, all these things, correction of poverty, and the human rights issues can be sorted out. Really, it's so diverse, It's hard to know what is a Philippine person, because there is such a confusion in the cultural identity. So many cultures have come together. But overall, considering how widespread the archipelago is, it's a very relatively, in the area, prosperous place and rising again. So, and it's a very important where it's situated as well as kind of a link between different aspects of the world. So the developments in the Philippines, the ongoing sort of attempted revolutions there and all of that, this has to be watched closely. Okay, well, I hope you have a little idea here about the nature of the country, the problems facing it. And it's interesting, I wonder, the Virgo and Cancer, it's very strongly feminine. The moon is very, very strong. Moon is rising in both of those charts, the very first and the most recent. So the cultivation of all of those qualities that are associated with the feminine consciousness and with Venus, I think, will point the way. And I'm sure the second ray is very strong there. I don't know what other rays, maybe the fourth ray too, because of all of the tremendous dispersion and sort of battles between the different cultural elements which have occurred over the years. Okay, friends, so now, if you could get something out of that, I will proceed with our meditation, where we link up with each other and with the Triangles Network, distributing soul energy throughout the world. And we link up with the soul, our own soul, soul of the group, soul of the Philippines nation, and with the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. And of course with the great world teacher, whose love and concern for the development of humanity and the planet pervades every nation in a subtle way. Especially, I would say, the Philippines must be very receptive to that through their largely Christian orientation. So we say together, focusing on the great Lord, Maitreya, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. And our attitude is one of love. That is the energy that will heal the individual and heal the nations and rehabilitate the nations. So we say together, I know, O Lord, of life and love about the need. Touch my heart anew with love, that I too may love and give. So our attitude is benevolent, and we seek the spread of the energy of love, the soul ray of this planet, to rehabilitate these nations and help them respond more to their soul nature than to the personality tendencies. I think there's a very strong second ray here in the Philippines, and this will be developing. And we're asking for the quality of the soul of this nation and the other nations to emerge, and we can do this because, as has been said by the Tibetan of the Christ, the following: He for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in his name, and with faith in the response, will see it accomplished. So in this context, we ask for the emergence of the soul quality, the healing soul quality of the Philippines to emerge for that nation and to help all forms of life there, humanity, the animal kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the natural resources, all to be rightly treated, rightly used. so that this nation can make its contribution. You know, the loving and caring attitude, it's so interesting. Virgo is rising, right? And the moon is rising in Virgo. And the number of Philippine nurses across the world, very extensive. So the caring quality, that second-ray quality, is in evidence. Certain planetary centers, there are 5 major ones, will be spreading their influence in different parts of the world. It's not given what it is, but it could be Darjeeling or Tokyo for the Far East. And we see these planetary centers exerting a benevolent effect upon this nation. They are both first ray centers from a certain point of view. So thinking of this nation, this diversified, very diversified nation, so many languages and groups, you know, it has to all be synthesized. We call upon then the soul of the Philippines to emerge and to help solve the many problems and bring the best into expression. And we'll take some silent time to do that. We can see that one of the things the soul would do with such a diverse nation is to work on the process of integration, just as it is for the human individual. And the sign by which this can occur is Cancer, the sun sign, which draws a kind of perimeter around that diversity and helps to bring it all together into a certain kind of oneness, a certain kind of unity within the variety. I think we're dealing largely, as I think about it, with the second ray and the fourth ray, bringing harmony into diversity and bringing an overall Venusian love influence, a harmonizing place where love, wisdom, and caring can emerge and basically triumph over the insurrective Martian elements which are seeking to destabilize So may the soul of the Philippines emerge, bring its quality to the nations of the world, play its part in the harmony, intended harmony of all the nations. And here is a picture of many of the nations we have discussed. There are probably almost 200 nations in the United Nations, some of them very, very important and large, influential, and others, well, very tiny, maybe even the size of a small city. But, you know, you get a real sense of the diversity of humanity as you go nation by nation, and what it could mean that with the mantra of unification, the sons of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact to service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring to reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the times. Let vision come in insight, let the future stand revealed, let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone, let love prevail. The great unification of humanity has to occur, it will occur under the reappearing Christ. Such harmonizing remains to be done. And you can feel that the Philippines will be important in that demonstrated harmonization. The flags of the various nations here, and a world of light towards which we are working. And if that's going to take place, every individual, every community, every nation has to play its part. So that's what we're working towards in this meditative work now every Saturday. On Wednesdays, now next week, it will be the 5 p.m. time GMT, but we have one more this week at 5 a.m. and it's the evocation of money for hierarchical purposes. That's tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. GMT. And then we go into the PM week again. Triangles on Wednesday, reappearance of the Christ on Thursday, the Dissipation of Glamour webinar, not a broadcast, on Friday, the invocation of the souls of nations on Saturday, and then the evocation of money for hierarchical purposes on Sunday. And we know that if millions of people in the world use the Great Invocation, that this needed harmonization and peace and right relations between all human beings in the world will develop all that much faster. So we're going to look now at the Great Invocation. Flags of the many nations, our schedule, the larger schedule for the foreseeable future into September, and the next country, quite different. We'll be dealing with the United Arab Emirates when we're going to the Middle East there and some of these Arabic countries. It is a place where many of the Philippine workers go as domestics and in other capacities. And there have been abuses. We have to look into that too. But our hope over the next few years is to continue with this Ask program, this program of depending upon the science of invocation. And together, meditatively, we will bring in, and apply the energies which can make a positive difference for everyone in the world, everywhere in the world. And now we will close our program this morning with the calling of Maitreya Buddha.